What is going on? I want to welcome you from half court for today, as always, joined with my guy, my main squeeze, my side piece, my boy, Jeff Iafrate. Jeff, what it do, baby?
Oh, it's going, my man. I'm excited. We got a good video to talk about today that we kind of chopped it up beforehand. And I had to kind of reminisce today, man. And it brought back some good memories and some bad memories. So
Oh
I'm excited to
boy,
get into it.
we're bringing back memories today, ladies and gentlemen. It's so let's set the stage. We're at that point in the summer, of the basketball world, where we're just waiting for things to happen, right? We're waiting
Exactly.
for training camp to start. We're waiting for trades to go down. We're waiting for news to take place. But in the interim, Jeff, let's take some time and let's look back to how we got to where we are now. And I would argue that the ultimate catalyst that put us in the position to where we are today started with the Blake Griffin trade at the trade deadline back in the 2018-2019 season. Now, for those of you that might not remember, Blake Griffin signed a contract with the LA Clippers. He had the old jersey retirement ceremony, was told he was going to be a Clipper for life, and signed a 5-year, $180 million contract, only to be traded to Stan Van Gundy and the Detroit Pistons in exchange for Avery Bradley, Tobias Harris, a slew of picks. It was a pretty big trade package. And Jeff, obviously, Blake Griffin had a, how do I put this, controversial run, perhaps, in Detroit. And in my opinion, I think he kind of gets a little too much flack. So, with that, I think this is a good time to actually pause and let's talk about what maybe Blake's legacy with the Pistons should be. So, with that, Jeff, I want to start with you. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Blake Griffin as a Detroit Piston?
As much flack as Blake got on the way out, it was undeserved. I could see why Pistons fans were frustrated, especially at a time where you weren't winning many games. Blake was injured. But he didn't ask to be traded to Detroit. Like, we can't forget that, too. Like, he wanted to be a Clipper for life. Steve Ballmer, Jerry West, they had different plans. They traded him to Detroit. Stan Van Gundy, one last shot to try and keep his job. And then the following season, him and Andre Drummond, listen, at the time, I was very excited because I was curious to see how that front court would work. It didn't end up working out the way we all expected. But Blake had a career season in Detroit. He had a career high in points. He had a career high in assists. He had a monster season. Honestly, I'm looking at these statistics too. Like, he shot 36 from three on 7 attempts. Like, he had a really, really good season, an all-star season for the Pistons. So when you look at it like that, and at least in my lifetime, the closest thing to a superstar, I guess you could say, or a really good star that I've ever seen. I mean, I was born in 2000. In 2004, he won the championship. But even through that stretch, like, I didn't see a guy go out there he played 75 games too. That's the most games he's played in the past 5 years. So Blake gave everything to Detroit. I think what frustrated him, and I can see why as well, is the way it ended towards the end. A lot more younger guys were coming in. He was asked to do something that a lot of guys in the NBA, good players, don't like to do. It's coach the young guys. He doesn't want to be a veteran. And I understood that at the time. He's getting paid a lot of money. And that's why he gave back money when he left. He just wanted to cut ties and get out of Detroit, which, to be honest, guys, we can't forget he didn't want to come here. He played, most of the season. The team really, at the time, I mean, considering the talent they had, it's not like they underachieved. They really just, you made the playoffs. You get beat up in the playoffs as well. I don't hold too much flack towards Blake. I respect him. I don't have a Blake Griffin jersey, but I almost did. And I do have a good memory. I went with my girlfriend 3 years ago. It was October in 2018. It was the game that Blake got 50 against Philly. And I remember being there, man. I was in the nosebleeds and I'm watching. And that had to have been one of the best performances I've seen in the regular season. And to have in overtime, he gets the game-winning layup. It was a foul as well. Just seeing that performance, I feel like I'm a little biased because I just had this newfound respect for him. So for me, there's no ill will. I respect everything he did, but definitely on the way out, there was some beef among Pistons fans and Blake, no doubt about it.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Yeah, you hit it on the head. And listen, man, I think with Blake, I think, first of all, a lot of that anger and that resentment towards Blake, I don't think it actually has to do with Blake himself as much as what Blake represented, right? It's like when people booed Andre when he came back to Detroit. I don't think people were booing Andre. It's what Andre represented. And it's that
Right.
era of Pistons basketball, right? It represents the mediocrity we were in. It represents it just represents the purgatory as a franchise that we were in for years, not being able to get out of this position, not being able to break through that metaphorical barrier to get us over the top or even get us to a position of relevancy. And listen, when we brought in Blake, he was a guy that, at his time seemed to be, in his prime. Obviously, I think now we know that that was not the case. And, it at the time, I was happy with the move because at least we did something. Because for years, this franchise was trying to make this same roster and same lineup work. And we had just seen that this Reggie Jackson, Andre, Tobias, Marcus Moore, like this lineup had reached its apex. It got as good as it was going to get. And the best it wasn't good enough. And that Avery Bradley signing that we made in the offseason that was supposed to be a big move to really help us be a more competitive team, we saw very quickly that move didn't work. And so, listen, I get that Stan Van Gundy, I mean, it was a move that ultimately seemed to be made more so to secure his job than it was to secure the Pistons a long-term future, which that's just the business of the game. That's what people are going to do. However, I mean, let's remember Blake in 2019 was pretty awesome. I mean, like specifically, that was the year that he made his first All-Star, game in 4 years, was able to actually get out on the court. He was healthy going into the offseason, so he could actually work on his game. And then Blake averaged 24 and a half on, with an effective field goal percentage of 53% from the field. It was some of his best numbers of his career. And I would argue is perhaps the most intelligent basketball player that we'd seen Blake be at that point in his career. And listen, with everything that we had and the roster that we had, it became pretty clear right away. The only way we were getting to the playoffs is if we rode that guy's knee and put him out there as much as humanly possible. And that playoff series, like, say what you will about Blake Griffin and like his rivalry with Beef Stew and like all this stuff that we see now, all the chirping, even we saw like him fall off after this season. He gave us those last good years when he totally didn't have to. Like, he put his body on the line to help us get to the playoffs. And that was for a city that he didn't ask to come to. So I think overall, was Blake what we needed in Detroit in the long run? No. But in the interim, I think it was the wake-up call that ownership and management needed, that if we're going to build this, we have to build it right. We have to build it with a plan and a vision and a long-term goal, because it was just trying to put out these rosters to do everything we could year by year to get into the playoffs. And that's just not going to cut it in this league.
No, and I think there's two ways to look at it too. I guess from a fan perspective, a part of me looked at it like, damn, I don't want to pay Blake Griffin $30+ million. But also I was excited because, like you said, you hit on all the points. Having a guy like Blake Griffin, it really shows that at least there's, because a lot of organizations get flack for this too, like going all in. They went for one last strike. They really did. Didn't work out, and now it's ultimately led where we are now with Troy Weaver. But at the time, like, fans can't deny they were excited to have a guy like Blake Griffin in Detroit. He didn't want to play. He's going from sunny LA to cold, a town that hasn't won in quite some time for a stretch of years. And now it's like, all right, you went from playing with Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, JJ Redick, different guys that were veterans, to boom, now you're the oldest, one of the oldest.
Yeah, boom, now you're out there with Anthony Tolliver, Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Like, yeah, that's not exactly an upgrade.
It was really, I mean, among the first time in a while that Blake was like a true number one, like because he was maybe a number one scoring option, but on the Pistons, he was expected to do everything, maybe not defensively, but offensively. So I respect the guy that could play 75 games. I'm sure he was banged up through those games as well. He played, like you said, even took us to the playoffs, which watching the playoffs, I'm like, I don't expect much. All right, I'm just tuning in to watch Pistons in the postseason. It's not like I'm sitting here yelling at Blake Griffin. Like, you hit on everything. So really with Pistons fans, I think a lot of fans have come to, the other side now. And I don't think too many people hold a grudge. It really just has to do with the recency of the beef stew thing. I think a lot of that stirs into it, but him being in Detroit, I can't see why people would be upset at him. I really can't.
And can we acknowledge something with that situation with Beef Stew real quick? Had we not see Blake do the same thing in a Pistons uniform and cheer him on the entire time? Like I don't even think it was personal with Beef Stew. I think he's just an instigator, and I think from there maybe it started a little beef. Maybe they just didn't gel when they were teammates, but for whatever reason, I mean, listen, man, I like, that rivalry, even though it's, it is inherently fun, at the same time, it's just that's what Blake does.
Yeah.
So that's just who he was as a player. So I don't know why, I don't know why Blake has to be public enemy number one in Detroit, because if anything, like we said, man, he gave a lot to the city of Detroit. So overall, when kind of looking long term, obviously, I think what this does highlight, like we said, is the difference between the front office situation we had back with Stan Van Gundy and with Tom Gores pre Troy Weaver and Ed Stefanski, and then Tom Gores where he's at now, allowing people to take the keys to the car and taking a long-term approach. And
Right.
And overall, not just following league trends for the sake of following league trends either. Because you even remember at the time, Stan Van wasn't just the coach. He was the president of basketball ops. And we only did it because we saw the Clippers do the same thing with Doc Rivers. We saw other teams do the same thing to go out and get their guys. And at the time, that was a desperation move because Detroit needed a good coach.
Right.
So, yeah, man, just so many different layers of just mediocrity and bull crap that Blake had to deal with in that. But overall, I still thought overall he played pretty well. And he had that All-Star appearance too. That All-Star game was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Besides Andre Drummond, you got to see someone in the All-Star game as a Piston. It was great. In the year that you made the playoffs, you can't, I mean, listen, as much as you want to get flagged for how it ended, you're in the playoffs. Everyone was tuning in. All right, I see you Pistons fans. Everyone's excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he deserved the standing ovation at the end, because even when we were down 2-0 and we're looking dominated in this series, and he knew he wasn't at 100%, he still went out on the court and still went out and played for us. So you really can't ask more from your franchise guy or from your number one player. So, but
real quickly, he played just as hard in that playoff series as he did in like game 5 when I win. So we talk about laying everything out on the line from game 5 all the way to the postseason. He was giving his all, everything.
Yeah,
because look what happened after Detroit. Now look at the player he is now. He literally gave everything in Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now there's a very good chance that Blake Griffin might not be back in the league. Like, I know there's been reported interest from Miami. I would imagine if Blake Griffin's going to get signed, it's probably going to be late in the summer, closer to training camp, or it's going to be a little bit after the season starts in case of injuries. So, with Blake, like you said, you just hit it on the head right there of after what he did in Detroit and after that sacrifice, we saw right away that he came out and wasn't that same guy. And again, the silver lining of it all, you wish you never have to go through this kind of crap as a franchise. You wish you never have to make this type of trade and deal with those types of repercussions. But maybe it was just that wake-up call that Tom Gores needed to realize this isn't the strategy to win. It's just not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But with that, what did you think of Blake Griffin's time in Detroit? How many Blake Griffin jerseys do you own at home? Let us know in the comment section down below. But
you got them.
Oh yeah, we know damn well you got them. But also be sure to be following my guy Jeff Iafrate on Twitter at Jeff Iafrate, myself at Sean Halfcore. But also you're becoming a member and clicking join right down below. But also, Jeff, did you know that 66% of viewers aren't subscribed to the From Halfcore channel? What the is that, man?
Sean, that, like I always say, that is 66% too much.
100%. Right, boy. So be sure you subscribe to From Halfcore.
Do it.